Today we are Group 1 and we are about to present the globalization here in the Philippines, and it consists of 4 groups of information, which is the socio-economic globalization, economic globalization, social globalization, and political globalization. First is the socio-economic globalization. It involves the population, land area, national income, and many more. The second one is the economic globalization in relation with its performance in international trade, partners, and its top product. The third one is the social globalization, explaining how globalization manifests Philippine culture and society. Lastly is the political globalization regarding government policies in international trade and membership organization. In line with this, we are going to answer the question, how did globalization change your life? Does it gone too far? In what way globalization benefits?
Socioeconomic profile of the Philippines. Here is about the population. The population of the Philippines is currently at 101.6 million. World Bank and Philippine Statistics Authority. The 12th largest globally since 2015, the Philippines has entered the demographic window with 70% of the population being of working age, with the current median age of 23.4 years. Population's growth currently stands at 1.9%, although this is accepted as a rather contentious figure. Additionally, about 12 million Filipinos live and work overseas and form one of the world's largest diasporas that generates an inward remittance flow of approximately $26 billion annually according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. The Philippines boasts the third largest Catholic populations globally and sharply contrasts with the rest of Southeast Asia. The Spanish Catholic 300-year colonial rule makes the Philippines only one of 2 countries in the region with a majority Christian populations, the other being is Timor. The Muslim population is approximately 5% and primarily in and around the southern Mindanao region.
In the Philippines, the poor are strongly dependent on access to land for their livelihood and welfare. 3/4 of the poor making a living out of agriculture and fisheries activities. Likewise, the urban poor, who account for 25% for total poor population in the country, are also dependent on land since housing provides them access to urban economy. For many urban poor families, the house serves as base for income-generating activities. Examples of these are food vending, tailoring, processing of recyclable materials, and etc. Thus, sustainable economic activities in agriculture and fisheries sector and the urban economy that could address poverty alleviation depend on efficient and socially accepted distribution of land resources. A well-functioning land market is a major factor to sustain growth and poverty reduction strategies, but the Philippines land market has not been efficiently functioning. Land was highly unequally distributed, problems of boundary disputes, illegal occupation of state and forest land, fake titles, and inappropriate land valuation.
Socio-economic profile in the Philippines. The Philippines is not equal for the income because only rich can live well and poor are struggling to survive. But now, in the time of COVID-19 and the government-imposed lockdown, it has shifted to the poor versus middle class. The Philippines is the most dynamic economy in the East Asian Pacific region, which means the growing middle class and a large young population is economic dynamism. Business activities and with novel performance in the services sector including business process, outsourcing, tourism, and finance and insurance industries. Real economic growth however, has been challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic and strict community quarantine measures imposed in the country. But even so our situation, people are still trying to wake up, they not lose hope, and overcome in suffering.
The Philippine Economic Globalization. The Philippine economic growth rates from 1980 to 2011. Early 1980s, the country was beleaguered by economic and political instability. In 1983, the country's growth rate of gross domestic product decreased by negative 7.31%. Year 1986, the GDP growth rate started to increase and reached 6.75% in 1988. But downturn take place in 1989 due to crisis and large amount of foreign debt. In 1991, the growth rate went from negative 0.5% to 5.85% in 1996. However, due to its membership in ASEAN, Philippine GDP growth rates severely lowers to 0.58% in 1998. The economy was able to recover in 2000 with a growth rate of 4.41%. However, in year 2008 to 2009, it declined extremely to 1.15% due to global financial crisis. Foreign trade for agricultural commodities, import and export. In 2018, total trade grew by 9.6%, while in 2019, total trade recorded an annual increase of 4.9%. And in 2020, country's total agricultural trade went down at an annual rate of negative 7.1%. In the international merchandise trade of the country, it dropped from 182.52 billion US dollar in 2019 to 155.03 billion US dollar in 2020.
The main trade partners of the Philippines include China, Japan, the United States, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The Philippines is the world's 36th largest economy and the 13th largest economy in Asia. This newly industrialized country is mainly dependent on agriculture, service, and manufacturing for its GDP. With excellent trade route in the Pacific Ocean, these are some of the country's main exports and imports. Here are the main top export products of the Philippines: coconut oil, petroleum jelly, and electronic products. While for the main imports we have refined petroleum cars, office parts, and integrated circuits. The main competitors to the Philippines for this very popular category imports products are Malaysia, South Korea, Thailand, China, and Indonesia. Interestingly, China is both a competitor against the Philippines in exporting the parts but also a consumer of some of the components assembled in the Philippines. I am John Lloyd Giduque for the top products and trading partners of the Philippines. Thank you.
Social globalization, manifestation of globalization in the Philippine culture and society. In the Philippines, globalization is important in how it works in the economy and the development of technology. Globalization helps each country to have cooperated to help each other and be united. Globalization is formed to process goods, services, and people around the world. Globalization has brought many job opportunities to all Filipino people. The government encouraged foreign companies to establish business and open many jobs to the Filipino worker even in abroad. Globalization can also help Philippine education to improve more. In the Philippines, when it comes to education, we improve more and we offer higher education and skilled people. Education in the Philippines is now recognized outside the country. It also improved the flows of information technology and the quality of goods and services. Being connected to other country means good to our country. It helps to do good quality and give the best service to them so that we bring dignity to the Filipino people.
According to mborganization.org, social globalization refers to the sharing of ideas and information between and through different countries. In today's world, the internet and social media is at the heart of this. Good example of social globalization could include internationally popular films, books, and TV series. According to the utopian.blogspot.com, the process of globalization has instituted profound impact on culture since ancient times. The Phoenician traders' impact on great Asian Greek culture, Chinese silks and jars used in prehistoric Philippines, and the spread of coffee, chocolate, and tobacco from Latin America to the world are few of the examples of globalization of culture. In today's modern world, globalization has become more complex and pervasive, and this is brought by different factors that have compounded through that time. In sum, globalization of culture has created both positive and negative effects on cultures. In our culture, globalization has improved our way of living and created an impetus for us to strive for a better life. But in the process, it has changed some of our traditional ways of life, practices, beliefs, and ideologies. Hence, globalization is neither good nor bad. Rather, certain aspects of the complex and multifaceted process of globalization have effects that can be viewed in different ways depending on the values at stake.
According to World Trade Organization, here in the Philippines, the political globalization of the government in terms of international trade is protected and granted to the economy has continued to decline since Philippine last review. In consequence of the commitments in the Uruguay round, the Philippines bound virtually all agricultural, or except for rice, and about half of manufacturing tariff lines, compared with only about 7% of all tariff lines before the round. However, final bound tariffs are well in excess of the current average applied tariff. Based largely on pre-announced programs, applied tariffs were more than half between 1972 and 1999, despite tariff increases within bound levels for some products in January 1999. In some sectors, tariff escalation persists and tariff dispersion has increased.
First, what is a membership international organization? It is an institution that membership at least 3 states and having activities in several states, and whose members are held together by a formal agreement. For me, it is an organization that all people unite that has a formal agreement. That is my briefly insight and research about that matter. Moreover, this is a lot of philosophers explain their different perspective about the membership international organization. They are 5 philosophers that despite and define it deeper. For the sake of students, to deeply understand what is the essence of the membership international organization. Studying international relations is a great way to gain deeper understanding of global issue. It's important subject which places great emphasis on economic, culture, education, and we also learn the importance of membership to our society, and we also having awareness of what's happening beyond the borders.
And that's the end of our presentation. We are now done discussing the 4 kinds of information regarding globalization here in the Philippines. Globalization good fortune to our country. Globalization in the Philippines has a positive effect on its economic growth and development. Its socio-economic profile, or to be specific, the population, which is 70% of our population are involved to globalization. Its national income that shows that it is not that big because our country is still a developing country. About the social globalization shows that it is helpful to our society. It is improving by times go. Lastly, political globalization. Through its foreign trades, it is helpful to boost each other's economy. Makes my life easier. I can communicate easily even though it is outside the country, and about the exporting and importing some goods because I am fond of ordering outside the country. Next is that does it gone too far? Honestly, globalization is not about the good effect and bad effect. It has also on how we run our own race. It is also depend on us on how we run our life. Next question is, in what way globalization benefits you? Globalization benefits me in many ways. About the education system of the Philippines. Globalization is the way of improving the education system here in the Philippines. It is helpful for me to become the better student. And now we are done. We are hoping that you understand our presentation, and again we are Group 1 presenting.